Hello everyone, welcome to Christina's Knitting Catch-Up episode 22. Today is Monday the 4th of January, so it's the first opening business day of the year. I'm Christina and I'm coming to you from my home in Canberra, Australia, where it's currently a chilly 19 degrees and it's raining. So I'm sorry if the light is a little bit bad today. It's just extremely overcast and cloudy. I'm looking out at my little courtyard and it's just raining. So yeah, not the best day to record a podcast, but I said I'd record today, so here I am. I've got a lot to talk about today. So first I've got a couple of finished objects to talk about, two of which have been given away for Christmas. I did manage to finish my mother-in-law's socks and they were very well received. They went very well. I think I finished them on Christmas Eve, maybe Christmas Eve, and blocked them and everything, so that went off fine. In fact, everybody who received their socks from me this year were very happy. More on that later. And the other thing I finished that I gave away was the cardigan for my mum, which, of course, you know, I had knitted for Mother's Day last year, and I was basically altering it so that it fit her a bit better. I made the bottom ribbing longer, which was a bit of a challenge because it was bottom up, and I made the button bands wider and the neckband deeper. And the reason I didn't do that the first time round was because I ran out of yarn and I bought a new skein to use. So she really liked that. She's very happy with that now, although it's been a bit hot to wear it. Maybe she's wearing it today. Now, a couple other things. I haven't done much to this, but I sewed the buttons on. I thought you'd like to see it with the buttons on. This is the Playful Stripes cardigan by Alana Dacos, and it's in the second size, which is meant to be 6 months. It looks a bit small to me, but whatever. And this is knit in the Knit Picks Sport Weight Stroll, which I dyed myself using food colouring. So there you go. Turned out lovely. And the buttons, just great. Sewed it on with yellow thread to match the buttons. So the girl I knit this for, her due date is actually today. So I might text her in a bit and see how she's going. It's also my dad's birthday, so clearly a good day to have a Capricorn. Capricorn? I think so. Capricorn, capricious, little goat, yeah. So that's one thing I finished. And the last thing I finished, finally, is this shawl, which is the Chosen Path shawl. I forget who it's by, but it'll be in the show notes. And it's blocked and done. So I ended up doing, how many repeats is this? 1, 2, 3, 4 repeats of the lace. And I didn't block the points very harshly. I didn't use pins. I just sort of let them fall where they fell and pulled them a little bit with my fingers and let it dry. Now this is made out of Touch Yarns Sport Weight Merino Silk Possum yarn. I think it's 30% possum, some other percents of other yarns. 10% silk maybe. Anyway, it's just a lovely yarn. It feels very light and squishy and soft, so I can wear it up against my skin on my neck and no itchiness at all. And you all know, if you've been watching, that I accidentally bought an entire new skein of this, thinking that I had run out when I actually had another 50-gram ball stashed away. So this shawl, when you knit 1, 2, 3, 4 repeats, you can knit it using a 100-gram skein of the possum yarn. So ignore what I said earlier about you not having enough yarn, because I totally did. And I'm going to knit myself maybe a beanie and some fingerless mitts to go with this. So that can be my little winter ensemble. I was worried that it wasn't going to be big enough because I like my shawls kind of big. I guess I like them to wrap around the back and then back around the front. I like to fold down the top a little bit. So there's the top. I like to fold it down a little bit and wrap one side, the other side. And then our front ends, pull it tight, tuck them in. Whoops. Tuck them in, or sometimes I even will tie them in a little knot because sometimes it slips off. So I tie them up, but you can't see it. Lovely, lovely shawl. I'm very happy with this. It did block out large enough. Thank goodness. And the colour is just so nice. Very happy with this. They don't have many colours in this yarn. There's that knot I tied. They don't have many colours in this yarn, but this colour, I think it's called cranberry. And I'm so happy with it. So that's lovely. I've even been wearing it quite a bit, even though it's summer at the moment. Hasn't been excruciatingly hot. Just got my cup of tea here. I think I've got like a chai kind of thing going on here in my dog cup. So they're my work finished things. Got a couple of works in progress. 3 actually. I think one is behind me, so hold on. Okay, first thing I'll show you is this jumper. I've dropped some stitches. Be cool, everybody, be cool. We'll just pick them up. Okay. Be cool. I don't have a crochet hook to hand, so I can't pick it up properly, but I'll fix that later. So this is a jumper that I'm knitting for my husband. It's the Twilight jumper. Doesn't look like much. It's a tube, a blue tube. So let me see if I've got it here. It's the Twilight jumper by Drops Design. It's free on their website, and basically it's a very normal V-neck jumper, and it's moss stitch from the yoke up. So you can almost see where it goes into moss stitch, but my printer is not the best. Anyway, I'm not up to the moss stitch yet, and I'm using the recommended yarn, which is Drops Lima, which I think has some alpaca to it. And I changed one thing. It said to cast on some huge amount of stitches. Losing it here. It said to cast on 255 stitches for my size, and then after the ribbing to decrease 63 stitches to 192. And I just thought decreasing 63 stitches is a huge amount to decrease. So I didn't cast on 255, I cast on 243, and then I only reduced 51 stitches, which still seemed like a lot of stitches to decrease. But I think it's going to be okay. The ribbing looks about the same size as the jumper, so that's fine. And apart from that, I haven't made any changes. You just knit up until the sleeves, and then you cast off for the armholes, and then you do the rest in moss stitch. It's a very, very simple jumper, and I'll talk a little bit more about this jumper later in a different segment. I'm going to talk about some technique stuff. So that's going fine. I've got just a whole lot of balls of this. I bought it like 6 months ago. My husband's grandmother gave me money for my birthday, which I spent on yarn for my husband, so I thought she would approve of that. And the other thing I've got on the needles is a few pairs of socks. Oh gosh, I'm halfway through a row here, how absurd. So this sock is just a plain vanilla sock. It's fluorescing, it's going a bit bright actually. I think when I bought this yarn, even then I couldn't quite photograph how bright it was. This yarn is Tumac Valley yarn. I forget the colorway, but it was actually like a gradient. So it was purple, then pink, then yellow. And I wound it off into 3 separate balls because I wanted to do stripes. And if I had just knit straight from the ball, I would have got like one very pink sock with a bit of purple, then one very purple sock with a bit of yellow. But I wanted these stripes. So I'm doing a thick purple, thin pink, thick yellow, thick, thin pink. It's very hard to say. So like the pink goes in between and it's a bit thinner. And I'm just about ready to cast off. Just a fish lips kiss heel, 64 stitches. I'm doing a 2x2 twisted rib for the cuff. And this is the first sock, so I still have to do another one. So I'm doing, what am I doing? 18 rows for the thick rows and 10 rows for the thin rows. And I'm doing this in order, oh dear, split a stitch, panic. There. I'm doing this for the January Sockathon. Sockathon? Yeah. That Mina Phillip of the Knitting Expat podcast is hosting along with someone else who I don't listen to. I just don't have time. So she says that she's knitting socks. I have time. I just don't have brain space. So I'm going to participate in the January Sockathon with no hope of winning. Like, it's the 4th today and Mina already has knit 2 full pairs of socks. So I'm about to cast this off, and then what I'm going to do for the next one is I'm going to start the toe with yellow. So it'll be yellow, pink, purple, pink, yellow. So it'll be the opposite. And in that way, I hope to use the same amount of both of these yarns. So 100 grams makes more than a pair of socks for me. So I weighed a pair of socks that I really like, and they were 63 grams together. So I will have, 37 grams left of this yarn in various quantities. And so what I did was, thinking about the sockathon, I went through my sock stuff, my sock stash, and a lot of it is scraps because like you know, I've been knitting socks for people. And I weighed out some quantities. So this is another pair that I actually have on the needles. And I'm trying 2 at a time, which is not working all that well for me. I'm getting terrible ladders up the side. Like with this one, I don't have any ladders anymore. It's just great, no ladder. Woo! But these, because it's 2 at a time, I'm getting ladders up one side of each of them, which is super annoying. But anyhow, this is the yarn I used for my dad's socks this year. So I've got the remainders of the Arnie and Carlos design, blah, blah, blah. I've got some plain white, and I've got a little bit of, this is actually just superwash merino. It's not nylon, so I'm going to use this for the cuff. And this is from Tumuck Valley Yarns as well. Same as that other stuff I bought, I'm knitting. It's got little speckles of rainbow. So that's that. I weighed all of this, and this turns out to be 63 grams. So these ones happen to match, which is great, but I think some of my other ones will not match, like not at all. So they are on the needles as well. Now let me show you the rest. Hold on. This is all my yarn for socks. Isn't this mental? Okay, so some of it is full skeins and full 100 gram lots, and I'm not counting the leftovers for them. So I'll start with ones that are made of leftovers. It's very hard to see what I've got here. Okay, so number 1 is the socks I made for my mum, and they're Arnie and Carlos with some black. And I thought I had some, maybe it's this? Yeah, it could be this, that I'm going to knit as the cuff. I have these little unicorn tails from Tumuck Valley Yarns. So that's one pair. Here's another lot. This is leftovers from the socks I knit my husband, and that's just a striping, and there's some Tumuck Valley Yarns contrast. And I've got a little bit more of that here. So that's 2 pairs. So how many I've got? I've got 2 on the needles, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I've got This is number 5. This is the yarn I knit my brother's socks, and this is some yarn I made myself socks, so that's 5. Putting them all over the table. This is yarn I made my mother-in-law's socks, and this is yarn I made myself some socks in. And there may be an extra, yeah, here we go. There's the extra little bit in case. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I've got, this is more yarn I knit myself socks out of, and some extras. I might need something else as well in there. So that's 7. Okay, now we're up to full skeins. This is 8, and this is going to be socks for my husband. I might wind this off into 2 balls and make some striping sort of things, because if I knit from the center, I'll have 1 dark sock and 1 light sock. And he's not going to like that, so I might wind it off and do stripes so it's dark, light, dark, light. That's 8. 8. I have to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, that's 8. Next is this Tumuck Valley Yarns Pinky Peach Sparkle. That's for me. I'm going to make a pair of Hermione's Everyday Socks from this. Do you know that pattern? It's interesting enough, I think, so that I can use this plain yarn for it. So that's, what, 9? 2 more. Then I've got this lovely yarn, which is Yarn vs. Zombies. I bought this in a D-stash. And the colorway is Alive. And I have no idea what this looks like knit up. No idea at all. It might be striped, it might be variegated, but that will be for me, all me. And I have this contrast to put with it if I want. Maybe it was just this one. I can't remember. Maybe this went with something else. Yeah, I think that went with that. Okay, so what's this, 10? And lastly, I have this Tumuck Valley Yarns called Dipped in Rainbows. And this is meant to come out with little stripes of rainbow on a plain background. I've got these to use as cuffs if I want. So, of course, because this, and this is a full 100 grams, I will have leftovers from them as well. So what was that, 11 pairs of socks that I've got kind of lined up? There's no way I'm going to knit them all this month. Like, no way. I'm not that quick. I mean, I've only done 1 full sock, minus the bind off, and like the toes of these. So there's no way I'm going to knit all of these socks, but it's fun to plan these things out. I've really enjoyed, going through my stash, finding little things that match. Like, they match, they're pretty, they go together. And putting them together and figuring them out. It's just a lot of fun. These, they go together. These go together. Well, they're the same yarn, of course they go together. And these go together. So that is my tray of delights. And I might keep that where I can see it, because I'm so excited about knitting them all now that I've planned them all out. It was just really fun. Like, once you realise socks don't have to be made out of the same yarn all the way down, especially if you knit a vanilla sock or just a plain sock. It's easy to mix and match, and they still look great. So that's my plan for January. Yeah, all my plans. So I don't have any acquisitions this week. That was all old yarn, but I have made an order from Knit Picks, and I bought, funny lipstick, I bought some Felici yarn that everybody is going on about. I bought some in the rainbow and some in some other colorways. And I also bought some plain yarn to dye with. And a pom-pom maker. So fun. I thought about reviewing the knitter that I got recently, but I think I'm not going to, because I've got a lot more to talk about still in this episode, and I don't want to make it into an hour-long podcast, because you have enough of those already, don't you? Okay. So something I wanted to talk about a little bit was how I join in new yarns, because I've seen a few people ask questions on podcasts and talk about their way of doing things, and I do it differently. So I thought I would show you with just these yarns that I have here. How about we use the pink and the yellow? So depending on whether I'm joining two different colours, like in a stripe, like this sock, or if I'm joining the same yarn, like I have been for this jumper, I do it a different way. So to join two different yarns, where's the end? So here's what I do. So I'm knitting along like this, and I knit, 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 knit. And I'll decide I want to run out of this yarn in a little while and start on a new yarn. So what I do is I cut the yarn, I leave maybe this much tail, and I fold it in half so that I've got another end up close to where I'm working, and I've got this loop, I've made this loop. So then I'll continue knitting, and there'll be a tiny little end on the inside of the sock or whatever, or your jumper or whatever you're knitting. And then in a few stitches, 10 stitches or so, you end up with this little loop and you're about to run out of yarn. And then all I do is I get my new yarn and I thread it through the loop, and I do the same thing backwards. So I end up with the yarns joined like this. It's not a knot. So there's no, I suppose there's a tiny bit of extra bulk, but I can never find it in my sock when I look for it. I can never find that little join. Usually goes to the back, so there's no problem. That's how I join two yarns that are different colours. And when you look at it in the sock, the extra bulk, like where you've run two yarns together, you can never tell. I can never tell when I've been running two yarns together. It's impossible to see it. All you can see is that on the inside of the sock, let me just pull this through. On the inside of the sock, you have some little tails. You can see them? And once it's been blocked, you can just snip them off, or you don't even have to, because they're so short. It doesn't matter, they're not going anywhere. That yarn is never pulling out, because I knit with two strands together for quite a long way, so that it's never going to pull out. You can do it with probably as few as 4 stitches held to, with double yarn, and it would be fine. So when it's the same yarn, like this, I have to use a lot of different balls of yarn for this, because it's a huge jumper and the balls are only 50 grams. So in this, I just, like, say I'm running out of yarn here. This is the end of my yarn. I'm knitting along. I think I've got that much yarn left. Holy crap. And I knit along, and then all I do is I find the end. Pretend this is the same color, yeah? Humor me. Humor me. I will just, oh, what? I got a knot? How did I manage that? Sorry. I cut that out. Not the knot, the podcast. Okay. There. So I've got this much yarn left, and then I'm just going to hold the new yarn with the old yarn for 10 centimeters or something. And there, once again, there'll be a little tail on the inside and a little tail where you finish. And then you've got the new yarn completely anchored in. You didn't have to do a knot. You didn't have to do the splicey thing. I've tried that, and it just ends up looking fluffy on the outside. Like, there are some spots in this yarn where it's clearly been spliced, and you can see, like, there's a stitch there, and here's the back. It looks like I've tied a knot. I haven't. It was a splice that was just kind of messy that I didn't do. And when you do this method, you can see a little bit of extra bulk on the inside where the purl bumps are. And you can see the two tails, one from the old yarn and one from the new yarn. But on the front, you can't see it. Well, I can't anyway. Like, there's one. I've got a few. Like, maybe you can see it a tiny bit, but it hasn't been blocked, remember. And a lot of things, you can hide a multitude of sins with blocking. So I just thought I would talk. I've dropped all these stitches again. What is wrong with me? Just going to... It's because my needles aren't quite big enough. Long enough to do this. Yeah. Okay. They didn't run down, it's okay. So that is how I join yarns together in a project. And I only figured out that this kind of way recently when I was doing stripy socks and I was trying to join in new yarns for the heel. And you get pretty good at judging how long to make the tail so that you can get to the end of a round and change. You get pretty good at that. So most of my yarn changes on this sock happen at the edge because I just get good at judging it. And you will get good at it too. Try not to choke on my tea. So that's my little 2 cents on that. So many people talk about doing knots and then undoing them, and I don't even know how that works. I just don't. You can do knots if you want. Why would you undo them later? It has made no difference to my knitting whether I have a knot or not. Okay, so moving down my list of stuff to talk about, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's been happening the past couple of weeks. So firstly, of course, there was Christmas, which was great. And as you know, I made socks. I made 6 pairs. Mum, dad, brother, husband, his mum, his dad. So that's 6 pairs. Some were larger than others, obviously, and all were really well received. So I'll put in a couple of photos of my recipients wearing them. The first photo will be my husband and his parents, and the second photo will be my parents, my brother, and my husband. Because what we did was we spent Christmas lunch with his parents, and then we just drove over across town and had dinner with my parents. And it was all very civilized and pleasant. I got a few lovely presents. My husband gave me this D-pillar, which is a bit weird actually. Actually, I bought it and then I made him wrap it up and give it to me. It's a bit weird. It gets a little, when I use it on knitting, it gets a ball of fuzz in the center that stops the blades moving as well. So, I don't know, I might try a different one. I don't feel bad about getting rid of it because it wasn't a real present. He did get me some real presents, but that one was a bit of a weird one that I bought. What else did I get for Christmas? My mum made us these placemats for our table, and she, wrong corner, and she embroidered the lovely cross-stitch pattern in them for me. So I've got 2 of them, which I love. They're nice and big. Unfortunately, our table is quite small, so they're lovely and one of my favourite things I got for Christmas. Last year, she also gave us some placemats, which all my stuff is on top of. So these are the placemats she gave us last year, which is lovely Christmas fabric. And I just love all of them. She's good at making things. She doesn't think she is, but she is. She's very good. Some other stuff I got a few, not beauty products, sort of bath products from Lush. So a few people got me things from Lush. So I got some nice hand cream, which smells very interesting. I do like Lush cosmetics, not cosmetics. I've never used their cosmetics, but I use their bath bombs, and my husband gave me a big thing of Christmas-themed bath bombs. I don't use bubble bath, but I love bath bombs. I just think they smell lovely, they make your bath time fun. And so that was really lovely, and I've been using them. As you know, I made that poem for Christmas, and a few people liked that as well, which was lovely. And as you know, I gave my friend Violet some hand-dyed yarn, which was supposed to be striped like an Australian bird called the variegated fairy wren. And she has been knitting up a pair of socks for her boyfriend in that yarn. And I'll show you what she's done so far. And so I think that's coming out nice. The stripes aren't quite as wide as I had envisioned, but they're not too bad. It's hard to do self-striping yarn because you end up, well, this is how I do it because I don't have a warping board, which is that board with pegs in it that dyers use to make stripes. I don't have one of those, so what I end up doing is making a hugely long skein, and this one went from the top of the stairs way down to in the kitchen between two chairs, and I sort of have to walk in between, doopy-doopy-doopy-doo, wind it. Sometimes it flips off one of the things and you have to fix it. It's very labor intensive, and I wish I had a better way of doing it. But usually what happens is I'm going around doing it, all of a sudden it'll flip off one end and start to pull back, and I'll swear, and my husband will come and help me, and then he'll have to stand there and help me for the rest of the time because he's very kind to me. So that's what I did for that. And yeah, it's coming out nice, and I hope she likes that. Yesterday, well, actually, today's Monday. On Saturday, my husband and I drove up to Sydney to see our favourite musician, Weird Al Yankovic, perform his show. Usually he comes to Canberra, but he didn't come this year, unfortunately, and I didn't get to meet him like at a meet and greet this year either, unfortunately. I've met him twice in the past at his past two shows in Canberra, and he's a lovely man, and I really like all of his music. The concert was at the Enmore Theatre in Sydney, which is a great theatre, but I was a bit late purchasing tickets, and so I got the last row. It was either that or be in the mosh pit, and I wasn't interested in doing that. I'm old, so I'm not going to do that. So we went in the very back row, and the last 4 rows of the theatre were strange and small and pokey, and they didn't have air conditioning up there. The air conditioning started lower down, and so of course heat rises, and we didn't really get any fresh air up there. So it was really hot and really pokey and small seats. My knees were touching the seat in front of me, and I'm not tall, and my husband is tall, and he was pretty squished. And we were squished and hot, but the view was fine. There was no problem with being able to see or anything, and he played some of the greatest songs. He played some songs that I haven't heard him play before, and I just had the best time. And one of the nice things about the Weird Al crowd, there's a few nice things. One nice thing is that they're all different ages and types of people. So, I suppose with a pop band, I don't know, One Direction, all of the audience is going to be 17-year-old girls. This audience is girls, boys, mums, dads, all sorts of people, because Weird Al has had such a long career, and he hooks people in when you're 14 years old and you're a little bit of a weirdo, right? Everyone's a weirdo when they're 14. And he hooks you in with his latest album when you're 14, and that's your album, right? My album was Running with Scissors. I know that album back to front. But once you're hooked in, you get the next album too, and the next, and then you go, oh, I want to know his old stuff, and you get all of his old CDs. So I have all of his albums. Mega fan. Sorry, massive nerd here. And the other great thing about the audience was that they knew all the words, and the whole audience pretty much was singing along with every classic song. Not so much with the newer songs, but next time we'll know them. And it was just fantastic. And also the show was great because he had costumes for every different song. Every segment was a different costume. And in between songs, there were videos played up on the video screen, which were like laugh out loud, hilarious videos. And on came the introduction to the video film clip, Fat, which is a parody of Bad by Michael Jackson, if you don't know. And everybody knew all of the dialogue from the beginning of Fat, and everybody was saying it out. And then he comes on in his fat suit, and it's just so funny. Like, it's amazing. I had the best time. Even though our seats were crappy, we had the best time. And I got a hoodie, which I love. So yeah, that's what we did. I haven't been that well. Like, I've been in a lot of pain in my tummy, and I got really depressed about it a couple of days after Christmas. I just got so down and like terrified, scared, because the pain was really bad, and I couldn't figure out why all of a sudden I'd had this flare up, because everyone seems to think it's muscular problems, and I hadn't done anything strenuous. So I got really anxious and upset, and I started behaving really weirdly, and I started throwing things out, thinking, if I die tomorrow, I don't want my husband to have to deal with all my stuff, and I'm okay now. I'm still very sore, but I went to the doctor just earlier today, and she felt around in my tummy and she said, well, the muscles are so much tighter on your sore side. It's clearly the muscles. So that has relaxed me a little bit, but I am going to see a new physio and, get some investigations happening, because I'm sick of it. Just sick of it. So the next few weeks, I've got a few music things on this week, and then after that, I'm going to really start sorting this stuff out, because I'm sick of it. But I mean, apart from the pain, I'm very well. Like, I don't feel sick in any way. So that's good. That's good. I just feel a bit anxious about it. So, it's my phone, excuse me. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had a phone call. So, I'm going to announce a knit-along that I will be hosting, and I think we will start on the 1st of February, and we might go until March sometime. And this is going to be a deep stash knit-along. So, I know that everybody has in their stash these yarns that they bought for a special reason, and then didn't end up doing that project or chose something else, and now you have this yarn that is nice, or maybe it's not nice, I don't know, and you want to use it up. So I'm going to do a knit along for deep stash stuff, and my rule for the stash is that it has to be more than 6 months old, like 6 months since you purchased it. So I'm thinking of using some yarn that I bought in November of 2014, and yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to knit with it. I'm going to knit myself a little hat, or my mum or someone is going to get a nice little hat, and yes, and there will be a prize draw. Sure, why not? So, of course, we're not starting this for another 4 weeks or something, so start thinking about what you might want to wear. I mean, not wear, knit with your deep stash, and make it something good, okay? I don't want to see any, like, one tiny mitten for a mouse, okay? I want to see at least 2 human-sized mittens if you're going to do that. You know what I mean? No just entering in something tiny just to be part of a knit-along. Not that you guys would do that, right? You're lovely. Yeah, so thanks to everybody who's been adding me on Ravelry. I've added you all back and been sending me messages and things, and participating in the forums. I really like hearing from everybody. It's just so nice. So I think that's all I had to say. Yeah, I'm going to get back to finishing this sock. I just have to cast it off. I always do Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. Jenny? Yeah, Jenny. Her surprisingly stretchy bind off, because I find that it works best for my socks. So yeah, that'll do you for today. Everybody have a really nice rest of the week and enjoy your knitting, socks, or whatever it happens to be. And yeah, Happy New Year. So I'll talk to you next week. Bye.